we are going to spend this episode going through our nomination predictions for this year's Oscars. We're also going to use this as kind of use it as a little draft, so to speak. Add a little spice to our annual Movie Time Oscar pool. And what that means is basically, Blake has his own predictions for nominations. I have my own predictions for nominations. For whatever prediction we get right, we're going to get bonus points. And going into our final Oscar pool predictions, these bonus points are going to carry on over. And then it could possibly make or break whoever's going to be the overall winner of the Oscar predictions and the Oscar pools for this year. So how that's all going to work is that all the smaller categories are going to be worth 3 points each. So any nominations that we guess correct, we get 3 points for each of those. For the major categories, which are the acting categories, directing category, and best picture, these will be worth 5 points. So like I said, every nomination that we could get correct, 5 bonus points for each of those nominations that we guess correctly. So we could be going into the Oscar pool already with 100 points or so, getting ourselves ready for the final results as we tally things up at the end of that evening when the Oscars air. So it kind of spices things up a bit, and it adds a little bit more excitement to all that. So we're totally excited and doing all this. And if you want to play along, by all means, share along your predictions of the nominees and what you think is going to be nominated. Before we get into things, any last words of prep or anything you want to say about how we're approaching things this year? I think this is exciting, something different that we're doing.
I would say my last words would be, God help me, and I am death, destroyer of worlds. Please, God, make it this stop. Because I went from having a great time watching all the movies to watching way too many movies at the end of the year. And now there's not really any new movies out. So like I went to Book of Clarence last night. I'm going to probably Beekeeper and Mean Girls this weekend, and then just sit and look at this list of 2023 movies and wonder, who are the BAFTAs going to put in for score, and will that affect how things will go at the Oscars? And that we have a lot of that time ahead. So I'm glad we're doing this together. I'm glad we got a buddy system going. If you're going to go into award season, don't go alone. That's my advice.
We will be holding our hands throughout this whole entire process. So we are in a good space, and we're glad that you're in on the ride with us as you're listening or watching along. First category that we have is documentary. Each category will have 5 nominees, with the exception of Best Picture, which will have 10. Also, a little caveat too that we should mention, something that we actually just found out prior to recording. When it comes to original song, each movie is limited to only 2 nominees for their entries as far as original song is concerned. So that can play very heavily in a movie like Barbie that had a banging soundtrack and had multiple songs that a lot of people would want to nominate. Same thing with something like The Color Purple. So that's something just to keep in mind as we go through these things. But documentary, I'll start off on my end. My predictions for nominees are still a Michael J. Fox movie, Beyond Utopia, 20 Days in Mariupol, 4 Daughters, and American Symphony. Now, my quick thing on this is that the only documentary that I've watched from this list is still a Michael J. Fox movie. I think this was a very well done documentary, and that's one of the reasons why I think it is going to be nominated. What about you and your end?
I think we've got the exact same nominees, so we can just leave it at that. I've seen less of them than you, which was one. I saw documentaries last year, I promise, and I loved some of them greatly. Yeah. But overall, this category is kind of funny where, like, a Michael J. Fox story, I'm not saying it's not a great documentary, but it's Hollywood loves on these other categories, nominating Hollywood-type movies.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, when it comes to like category like documentary, there are, I believe it was 10 categories that had shortlist. They're dictated by the Academy themselves. So we already had kind of a leg up of what was being considered as far as nominations are concerned. So that kind of helped us determine, okay, which route are we going that way? And then everything else is basically just our own predictions, stat, all that, buzz, word on the street, gut feelings, and everything. So next category we have is documentary short. I haven't seen any of them on the shorted list, but the ones that I'm going with are The Last Repair Shop, The ABCs of Book Banning, Deciding Vote, The Barber of Little Rock, and The Last Song from Kabul.
Precisely the exact same. And this is what's interesting is at this season, you've got a lot of critics who are looking at each other to their left and right, and then they're guessing and putting their predictions down. And you and I are now part of this. And then the voting happens, and turns out people might not really like these the way because there's such little information to go off of. The problem with a prediction game such as ours is, yeah, you can guess what the surprise will be, but odds are you're wrong. So that's a funner game in my mind to play once it comes to the actual ballot, rather than this where we're trying to put 5 out there and guess what those 5 are, rather than, oh, what will the surprise or the upset be on a 50-50 type race? Because then it's really narrowed down.
And let's just address what some of the controversies are that we face every year. There are going to be people on the voting board that probably have never seen any of these, nor will they. So they could just be like kind of like picking whatever they think is right, what they hear from some other people and all that. So that's also where things get a little muddy too. Going into international, Blake, you want to start off on this one on your end, and then you could take the next two. All right, let's go.
Yes, that way you can copy my answers, no problem. So Zone of Interest, Society of the Snow, Fallen Leaves, The Taste of Things, and The Teacher's Lounge.
Oh, okay. All right.
And The Taste of Things, I'm just calling that not Anatomy of a Fall. If that helps.
Yeah, that is like one thing that really, really surprises me. That France basically, I want to say around September, probably even earlier than that, decided that their Palme d'Or winner, Anatomy of the Fall, was not going to be the movie they were going to elect for international feature film.
Spreading that love, the French way. I get it.
And when you have a movie with Julia Binoche attached to it, they probably thought, hey, she brings us luck every time, so let's push her through with our little romance cooking movie there. So we'll see how far that goes. As far as my list is concerned, we're pretty much identical with the exception of one. So you have, what was that? Teacher's Lounge? Is that the, I have Perfect Days instead of that.
Tempting.
This is one of those things where we're just hearing a lot of good stuff with these movies. I think it could go either way, to be honest with you. I think Fallen Leaves, Zone of Interest, Society of the Snow, and Taste of Things, those are the ones that are getting a lot of buzz right now. But I'm going with Perfect Days myself. And I guess we'll just see what happens from there. Moving on to the next category here, we have makeup and hairstyling. So Blake, take it away.
Hold on, let me get my right.
This is like one of our favorite categories because we always like want to look our best everywhere we go.
We both have really good heads of hair.
Absolutely.
Yes. Maestro, Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Society of the Snow. A lot of folks have Society of the Snow, or they had it lower on their list. Kind of from what I'm talking about, what happens is you also watch their bodies degrade, and like you go from a very cute, handsome, college age-ish rugby team to sunburn to hell, wounds. Like you really are watching them go through absolute hell, but in a very naturalistic way. That's why I threw that one up there. As more people see it, as more award shows happen where people will have seen it, I think it might get more love in this category specifically, but we'll see. That left an impression on me, though, for sure. It's one of the things that was hard to look away from.
I think the only difference we have here is I have Napoleon and Beau is Afraid on my list. I guess you have Society of the Snow and Killers of the Flower Moon. So outside of those two, everything else is pretty similar on my list.
Did you choose Napoleon because you thought it was makeup and hat styling? Is that what happened there?
It's all about the hat. It's all about the hat.
The hat, it's great hat work.
It's iconic.
For sure. The best hat styling
Yeah.
ever. Citizen Kane of hat styling, I would say. That's what everyone says about
Absolutely.
that movie when they see it.
The reason why I chose that too is because it's also a very unique period piece, because it is a period piece. And I feel like every time there's something like that involved, that's usually something that they pay attention to in these categories. And Beau is Afraid, I just kind of wanted to give some love to that movie, because I think that movie does deserve it, you know. And there was some interesting stuff that they did with Joaquin Phoenix in that movie as he's going through his little, you know, kind of meltdown, mental meltdown. And you know, we see him in different scenarios too. So I feel like that has a lot to, you know, in my opinion, I feel like there's a lot of makeup involved in some of his changes as he goes through different scenarios and all. And we're not picking any winners yet in this list. This is just for our nomination predictions.
Sort of, but I will add, and I've been saying this all year, that the best picture winner is going to be Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget.
Oh, I don't
And
blame you.
so
Yeah.
that's not a spoiler. That's not like something we have to hold
Yeah.
on to, a big secret. That's
Yeah.
everyone in Hollywood knows that and like I'm standing by it now.
Yeah.
Some people are waiting to see how the nominations shake out, but it's definitely for best picture winner, not just nomination. It'll be Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget.
Yeah. Now it's all formality stuff. Like we already know what's going to be the one walking away with the award. So, you know.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Next up, the next two categories deal with music. So first we have score. I have Oppenheimer, The Boy and the Heron, Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, and The Zone of Interest.
Sorry, that was for score?
Score, yes.
Okay. So you and I then have the exact same ones, except I didn't have Boy and the Heron, because that's not even the name of the movie. It's Boy and the Heron. But I'm now having a lot of second guessing here.
Uh-oh. Too late.
So you're watching it in real person? No. I actually don't have Boy and the Heron or Heron. I have Spider-Verse for my fifth slot in score.
Okay.
You didn't have Spider-Verse, right?
I did not. No, I did not.
Yeah, you said it wasn't that good of a movie. You didn't like it.
Oh, it was terrible. It's terrible. It's another one of those movies that add to the whole superhero fatigue.
Yeah, get out of here. It's just like all the other ones, right?
The one thing I will say in this category, it really surprises me that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem wasn't considered, because you have Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor who did the soundtrack for that. I'm a little surprised that they missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, they're just doing the TMNT thing, which is kind of weird because they used to do, you know, like high level Oscar. And I think it's more of a stigma thing, honestly. I'm not trying to say TMNT was the second best movie to Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget.
True.
But I don't think that the Oscars are taking that seriously in other categories outside animated, which I'm not there yet, but soon.
Yeah. Next up, we have original song. So this is going to be an interesting category, I think, because again, you have Barbie that has multiple choices to go with in this category. You have The Color Purple with multiple choices to go in this category. So what I went with was What Was I Made For? Barbie. I'm Just Ken, Barbie. Keep It Moving, The Color Purple. Road to Freedom from Rustin. And The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have Fire Inside Flamin' Hot. I cannot fathom any Oscar person who just is feeling real good about themselves writing that down. And I looked into the why it would be nominated. I'm not buying it. So for original song, what was I made for? I'm Just Ken, Road to Freedom, Keep It Moving, and it never went. Keep It Moving from Color Purple, and It Never Went Away from American Symphony. So I'm adding in I just feel like there's enough love for Jean-Baptiste. And then there's also something where when someone's popular in Hollywood, that can help them out a lot and can go a long way. The fact that he was Stephen Colbert's band leader means he was in a lot of living rooms and met a lot of celebrities. Probably shook hands, and from everything I've heard and can tell, he's a great dude, a great hang, solid person. So I bet he's got a lot of good handshakes in there with voters that might count for something. So I'm just giving a little more love to that movie than the prognosticators are so far.
At the end of the day, these are all campaigns. So a lot of these people will be campaigning. The studios are campaigning. If you have any of the trade newspapers or mags like The Hollywood Reporter, this is a time you're going to start seeing a bunch of ads show up about for your consideration. Facebook ads, Letterbox ads. You're going to see a lot of that stuff. So again, what catches the eye more and what kind of resonates with those voters more? This is a time where we're going to be seeing a lot of that stuff. So you could be very well correct. Wasn't John Baptiste in one of the movies too? Oh yeah, he was in Color Purple, wasn't he?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, that also helps out
Yeah,
for sure.
so there you go. Next up, we have animated short. This is again a unique category here because I usually don't get to see a lot of these until week of week of the awards show and all. But I did see one of them like this past week, and that is Once Upon a Studio because that's on Disney Plus now. And I thought it was very cute. So on my list, I have Once Upon a Studio, War is Over, Pete, Letter to a Pig, and Eva.
Same. Once Upon a Time in a Studio, Once Upon a Time in a Studio, Letter to a Pig, Pete, War is Over, and Eva. I've seen all of those except War is Over and Eva. Those first three make sense to me either because they're issues based or Disney's gets a lot of love at the Oscars. Letter to a Pig was pretty profound. You'll see it sometimes, especially with the animated shorts, and Eva looks like one of these two. The animated shorts that are more of like a very dramatic European, heartbreaking. You might see some things you wouldn't expect to see. And this category used to have a lot more of the Pixar type of short films,
Right.
And now it's gone more artistic leaning. War is Over. I actually have the record behind me from John and Yoko. And a big favorite. I have a pin that I wear on my. I have a magnet on my refrigerator over there. I really want to see that one. So far, haven't been able to. So, really hoping it gets nominated and becomes ubiquitously available.
Next up, we have animated feature. So this is full-length feature animated film on my list. Now, this is always one of my favorite categories because I am a big animation fan. So on my list, I went with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Boy and the Heron, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, Elemental, and Nimona.
Chicken Run. What? No Chicken Run Down of a Nugget?
No.
You think it's one of those because they know they're going to give it Best Picture? They're not going to put it in the end because it's like
exactly
because
they already know it's solidified as a Best Picture winner. So there's no need to have it in animated feature. They're just going to give more love to other.
It's really more than an animated film. It's a film. It's actually more than a film.
It's an experience. It's an experience. No, honestly, I did a last minute switch. I had Chicken Run in my list, and I was like, there's no way I want to give any more love to any of those type of movies moving forward. So I just said, you know what? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles needs to have some love because that was definitely one of the more talked about as far as best animated movies that came out last year. So I replaced it with that. So that's how I went with that.
Seems smart. Seems sound. Are we switching back to me now, or am I jumping the gun? Are you doing animated?
What was your animated feature list?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Exact same. 100% same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So for live action short and sound, we'll have you start it off. So
Wes Anderson's The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, Pedro Almodovar's Strange Way of Life. That's the end of our celebrity subsection. Then the Anne Frank gift shop. Really, I thought it was going to be very sincere, hilarious piss take on marketing such a sacred museum/gift shop. And it was just like a pitch room where they're trying to figure out how they can get it to go viral. And it was biting as hell. So if you're up for some satire around a very serious topic, that was enjoyable. The Shepherd. Sorry, let me just go back through. Wonderful World of Henry Sugar, Strange Way of Life, The Anne Frank Gift Shop, The Shepherd, and Red, White, and Blue. Red, White, and Blue is lower than a lot of other people's lists. The ones that are higher, I'm guessing it's on yours. I don't know. But The After, I saw it on Netflix, and maybe I just missed it or something. I thought it was almost unwatchable. Just only melodrama, not really much of a story or of anything. So I'm going with Red, White, and Blue. Dug a little deeper on the list.
I pretty much have a similar list, except like you mentioned, I do have The After on my list. Instead of
a lot of people do, and it's probably a smart bet. It's just every now and then I'll watch them and I'll have a feeling like if they're seeing what I'm seeing, there's no way in hell. But maybe it's just me. Maybe I just missed it or something. I'm not sure. I've been wrong like once before in my life. I hope it never happens again.
Once before.
This could be it. Maybe twice.
But like you said too, like you never know what's gonna like hit home to some of these voters, especially at this time. Next up, we have sound.
For the category of sound, I have Oppenheimer, Maestro, Killers of the Flower Moon, Ferrari, and Zone of Interest.
I don't have Killers of the Flower Moon on my list.
Woo!
I have
Really?
Napoleon actually on my list.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm currently looking at Beau's Afraid and Napoleon basically getting blanked on mine. I think there's one exception maybe, but you're giving the love to the Hat Man, Big
Yeah,
Joaquin, the Ridley Scott.
I am. This is one of those films that anytime you deal with any kind of war, sound does play very heavily when it comes to those action scenes. So that's the way I'm approaching this. Obviously, movies like Maestro, Oppenheimer, Zone of Interest, Ferrari, that kind of makes sense. Ferrari mainly because of the racing scenes. Like those are like the most intense racing scenes that we've gotten on film recently.
I wouldn't be surprised if Napoleon gets 5 nominations, especially undercard stuff. If it got totally blanked, I wouldn't be surprised either.
That's what makes this fun, right? You never know what's going to happen. We could always get
I'm
surprised.
miserable. This is fun. Is this supposed to be fun?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
We
God
started
damn it.
off saying
Why
that
am I
this was a
always
fun thing to do. And I love how, as we get deeper in the episode, the more stressed out you're looking right now. So
I'm looking ahead right now. Yeah, it's kind of fucked up. It's about to get real fucked up.
Next up, we have visual effects. So on my list of visual effects, I put down Godzilla -1, Poor Things, Society of the Snow, The Creator, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The big surprise here is Godzilla -1. I think if you asked a lot of people from the beginning of the year, even through the summer, I don't think a lot of people were expecting to... Are you changing things on my list right now?
Oh, fuck. Is that your list? I'm so
dude.
sorry.
What are you doing?
Here, I can fix this. Give me a second.
Like
I was trying to do it on my list.
All of a sudden, I'm
That's
seeing things
so
change on my list. I'm like, hey, what's going on
Yeah, I
here?
switched over years. I am so sorry. You got a lot of really terrible choices, though. So maybe I should leave them as is for you. Okay, I'm back over on mine.
What a hot mess. I could see how stressed out you are with this right now.
No, I'm fine. You're good. I'm totally good.
But yeah, as I was saying, Godzilla -1, the reason why I put that on my list is because when the movie came out, first of all, it was an accomplishment that the director also did his own visual effects for the film. So this was a guy that did visual effects, the directing, the writing, plus with the amount of budget he had to work with. I thought that was very, very fascinating. So that's one of the reasons why I put this on my list, because that is an achievement and accomplishment for so little to be able to accomplish so much. Now, I was very critical about some of the special effects in the movie, but it was nothing that ever really took me out of the experience. But then when you learn about how it all came about, I have to give kudos to them on making this happen and making it work the way it worked. What do you have on yours?
Sorry, I moved so many things around so quickly just now. I think we're good. What category are we on?
We're on visual effects.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay, I was 3 off. Good. All right. So now everything makes sense. Godzilla -1. Yes. Poor Things. The Creator. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Society of the Snow. Society of the Snow being another one of those where once you see it, you're not unseeing it. And I already talked about that earlier, but I'm feeling good about these 5. Do you think, just to confirm here, because obviously I wouldn't mess with your list at all. Society of the Snow is not a top 5 favorite. Are you sure that's something that you would put on your list?
Yes, I did that on purpose.
Okay.
For
just
the
wanted
reason,
to make sure. That was one of the tests of like, okay, if he put this, then yeah, okay.
Yeah, because that was one of the things that a lot of people were starting to talk about within the last, I want to say 3 to 4 weeks, a lot of people were giving a lot of kudos and props to Society of Snow for visual effects. And how it seemed to be creeping in on a lot of these smaller categories when it comes to other awards. So I'm like, maybe they have something going on here. Maybe there's a movement here on that. And the creator, even though the creator was not like a great movie, I mean, it was okay. And I'm not expecting it to get a lot of love during award season.
This is the one category.
This is the one because
impeccable visual effects.
It was seamless. It felt like everything was just how it should be. You know, it's hard to believe that what you're seeing on screen, most of it is CG and all that, you know, with the robots and the spaceships and the battle scenes and all. I thought it was extremely well done. So at least it should be recognized for that.
This is one of those categories that it's always going to get some of those. The only thing I was kind of surprised by was you didn't put Spider-Verse, because I just know how much you love Miles Morales. But I think you and I are both a little suspicious of this film even being in that category, so that's why I took it off mine.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at the short list and when I saw it was part of that short list, I was baffled because my whole thing was that this is an animated film. So when I think of visual effects, I think of live action visual effects. I don't think of animation because I feel like in a way that's unfair to compare that to visual effects that you would do on a live action set. Next category we have here is film editing. So on my list here for film editing, I have Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, and Barbie.
Here, give me what I'm okay. So I made a terrible error here. What I did was when I changed some things, I copy pasted that whole section, and I had Holdovers on my list and Anatomy of a Fall. So I'm going to go ahead and... Oh, I'm looking at your list again. Thank God. That makes way more sense. Okay.
All right. Maybe I should separate these two lists.
No, I think
it seems like you're getting so confused.
This is good content. No, there's no chance that I absolutely write Dawn of the Nugget 10 times for your Best Picture nominations. So here we go. For film editing, I had made a change at one point, making it back. Okay, Oppenheimer, definitely. Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, and Holdovers. And I don't feel really great about those whatsoever.
Why not?
I mean, Maestro is the main one. That's another movie. I know it'll get some nominations, but it's one of those Netflix, more people seeing it. You could see it getting, in theory, director, picture, like a lot of the ones undercards we've talked about, acting, and you could see it getting almost jack shit. It seems like right now the narrative is not good for Maestro, as some folks are seeing it, and then some people love it, and it's just polarizing enough as a movie that I have a bad feeling about it. So I almost wanted to give that visual effects from Maestro over to Anatomy of a Fall. But then I realized I was overthinking it, and I said, fuck it, and here we are.
So you're basically doing the typical Blake thing that I have seen in the past years where...
What are you talking
about? You're constantly second guessing your choices, and then you try your best to sabotage my list. And
yeah, that's the strategy, bro.
Yeah,
that's not a Blake thing. That's just good strategy.
Right. Next up, we have costume design. Why don't you start off with this one?
No, why don't you go ahead? Because I'm still doing the same thing I was doing before, just cleaning up whatever the fuck I did here.
Brilliant. Okay. Costume design. What I have here is Poor Things, Barbie, Napoleon, Wonka, and The Color Purple. I think this is one of the only categories that you're going to see Wonka mentioned. One of the things that stands out in that movie is the costumes. Napoleon, I'm of course going because it's a period movie. Barbie and Poor Things, I think, have the better chance and shot because there's a lot of great costume design in that film. In those two films. And I included The Color Purple too, because again, it's a nice little period piece. And since I'm kind of treating The Color Purple like a Broadway production put on film, that has a lot to do with it too. And I think they have to always make sure and pay attention that the costumes are on point for something like that.
Yeah, this is one of those where we differ a little bit more. Poor Things, Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and The Color Purple. I don't feel great about Wonka's chances of being taken seriously. And while this is the type of category a movie like that could get into, I don't think that the costumes were so exceptional. They were fantastical at times. They're already based off of something that pre-existed. And I didn't think of them as that unique. I'm going with Oppenheimer. I'm often, if I'm flipping a coin, I'm landing it on the head of Oppenheimer. I think that movie is going to get more love than we think, and if I'm wrong, you'll probably win this game. The other one that I was on the fence about, but ended up landing on, was Color Purple versus Napoleon, Oppenheimer versus Wonka. Between those, the reason why I went with Color Purple was all the reasons you said, plus the pants are a big part of the story.
That's true.
And that's the feel-good part of the story. Once things turn around in a real fucked up story, you go, oh, she's going to be okay. And the whole line, it's even in the advertising, the I'm wearing the pants now, right? It's a theme of the movie. So if something's sticking out from that movie, costume might put it over the edge just a little bit more.
Next up, we have production design. Now, this was one of the categories that you and I talked a lot about, like throughout the year, because we were seeing a lot of great, in our opinion, production design work in a lot of these films. What I have on my list are Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Barbie, The Color Purple, and Asteroid City. The fact that Wes Anderson built that entire town for Asteroid City, with the aesthetics that he implemented for that movie, I think that takes a lot of work and a lot of creativity there. So I put that there for him. Same thing can be said with Barbie. You know, the whole Barbie land was phenomenal. The fact that they built all that, the fact that they went through so much pink paint that there was a pink paint shortage during the production of that movie is quite hilarious in my opinion. Color Purple, again, same explanation like I did with costume design. I'm treating it like a Broadway production. And of course, Poor Things. Poor Things had probably the best production design throughout the whole year. I mean, if you haven't seen that movie, it is unbelievable how amazing the production design is, like for all of the things that they filmed there.
This is another one where you and I differ a bit. I took a swing here. Can't wait to get to it. So, production design, Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Barbie. Then I go Napoleon, and then Saltburn. Okay. So here's me playing the field a little bit.
Okay.
If it were up to me, Saltburn would be nominated in every single category, including animated short. I don't give a fuck. I really love that movie. That said, if there was something this movie was really, really fun and special with that you're going to remember, a lot of people, when they mention their favorite scene or a scene that stood out, it's the tour of that house and being in that setting. It's one of the things that the movie does really well. And even when people complain about it, it's because it's like the production design was too much. Personally, I'm going to go against what you said. Okay. And for the first ever time, disagree with you on something. I know. Please don't take it hard. No. But Color Purple, that was one of my least favorite things about the movie was the set design. It had that musical to a movie thing where I didn't feel like I was actually in a lot of the places I was in. They felt like set pieces. And it's one of those things that, yes, it's a set, and yet it felt more like a production set or a stage. And there's times where they were making kind of arbitrary decisions of where a certain scene is set. To me, it wasn't that spectacular, and it actually was detracting from what I enjoyed of the movie. So that's why, but that's more personal. Is that what Oscar voters are going to go with? Maybe not. Maybe because it was noticeable, it'll actually get more love. We see that with plenty of categories. Oh, this had the most editing, therefore it'll get an editing nomination. So I might be just going against my own better judgment, but I'm taking a few swings here, especially as we get further and I'm getting more delirious with my list. So that's what I'm marking down as my 5. Hold it against me later.
Next up, we have cinematography. This is one of our favorite categories here. And again, this is another category we were talking a lot about throughout the year because there were just a lot of movies that had, in our opinions, amazing cinematography all throughout. What I have on my list here is Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, and The Zone of Interest. If you have been listening to us, you wouldn't be surprised with any of these selections because we talked about them quite extensively when we were talking about these movies. That cinematography is by far peak when these movies came out, in my opinion. Do you have the same choices on your list?
Same. Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not surprised there either, because I think we were pretty unanimous when we were talking about these films that, wow, the cinematography was fully on point here. The next two categories are your favorite categories, so why don't you take these? Because I know you're a huge fan of the writing.
Sure. Thank you so much, Renee, for this opportunity to do that. As I double check and make sure, I'm not even kidding. Just go ahead, because as we're going, I'm cleaning up things that I messed up when I was pasting things over. So
Okay.
I appreciate it, but no, sir. After you, please. I insist.
Okay. Now, the major controversy going into these nominations is Barbie. There's a huge back and forth going on, and it looks like it's been finalized that Barbie is only going to be qualified for adapted screenplay and not original. I am too kind of baffled by that, but at the same time, I do kind of understand because it is kind of tied to a major, well known, established IP, but still, it is an original take on the whole Barbie franchise. So I think it is kind of like a weird scenario there. With all that being said, for adapted screenplay, and again, definition of adapted screenplay is a screenplay that has been adapted by an original existing source material, whether it's a book, a short story, a poem, a song, whatever. What I have here on my list for adapted screenplay is Barbie, Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, and American Fiction.
And I'm finally now confirmed that we're good to go for the rest of the time. Thank
Okay.
goodness. Unless you were messing with your supporting actress just now, but I think we're.
I was not.
Damn
No.
it. Okay. All right. Thank goodness. You should. It's real fun if you just have a little panic as you go
Sure.
through this list.
No, I'm
That
good.
way. Okay. Adapted. We're Zone of Interest, Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, and American Fiction. So we're in the exact same boat here. I'm sorry.
No,
I
we're
switched
not.
out. You had Barbie. Here's my theory, and I had Barbie up until the last second, and then I had panic attack and switched to Zone of Interest. So glad this is on camera. It was a good idea to record these. My honest thought is that some of the category fraud type thing we were talking about earlier with Spider-Verse, I have a feeling there'll be just enough people who want to vote for it for screenplay, but say this is bullshit. And like, I'm sure there'll be some people who are going to be big mad about it. Personally, I don't really care that much. But if you feel like this is the wrong category, it'll be hard to vote for that thing. We've seen it sometimes where an actor or actress will say, hey, I would like to be put into this category, and it can split their votes and kind of mess them up. I don't think that's how it works with screenplay. If I'm wrong, then I would love to put Barbie back on, but it's too late now. I'm sticking with Zone of Interest here for adapted screenplay.
Now we have original screenplay. Are you confident in taking this one, Blake, for to be the first one here?
So confident, Renee.
Okay.
I'm always confident. That's my whole thing. Which category was it though?
Original screenplay.
Kidding. Obviously, original screenplay.
Yes.
Obviously. So I went with Holdovers, Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall, Maestro, and May December.
Okay. Well, we have exactly the same list.
That's one of the categories where it seems among the cleanest. So I'm glad we agree. And that way, if I'm wrong about something, then so are you.
Or you just changed my list to look like yours because you thought you were
You never
editing
know.
yours, and I don't remember what I put down. So it could be one of those things.
Totally possible. I've been sabotaging you this entire time. Just wait till you get the
Awesome.
best picture, Dawn of the Nugget.
Well, actually, I know for a fact what I put down for best picture, so everything looks perfectly on point the way I was expecting it to be. All right, now we get into the major categories here. And first up, we're going to hit up with the supporting categories. So supporting actress, this was a very difficult category to kind of come up with because there was a lot of, again, we're seeing this every year where there's just a lot of strong performances all around. I just went with mostly gut on this one. Davine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers, Daniel Brooks for The Color Purple, Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Taraji P. Henson for The Color Purple, and Julianne Moore for May December. The big standout for me when I saw The Color Purple was Daniel Brooks. I thought her performance was outstanding. But at the same time, Taraji P. Henson's performance was also equally outstanding as well. So I could not help but put them on this list here. Of course, Davine's performance in The Holdovers was fantastic as well. There's just so much good performances here. I think the one that could be questionable for a lot of people maybe is Julianne Moore. I did like her performance a lot in May, December. She made that movie work, and it was the chemistry with her and Natalie Portman that really made it work. So that's why she's on my list.
Only a slight difference. I decided to, on a limb, throw in Penelope Cruz instead. Also, I'm pretty sure it's Divine Joy Randolph.
Is it Divine?
If I'm
I'm
wrong,
sorry.
I
Okay.
am so sorry. So sorry if I'm wrong.
Well,
But
I've
that
been
makes
known
a lot of
to
sense. That's
I've
what
been
I've heard
known to
people
say
say.
names wrong. So
Even the movies you love, like Boy and the Heron. That's one of
exactly.
my favorites. Still don't
Exactly.
know what's going on with that. I'm ignoring it. I think it's fun. Actually, I'm just gonna let you start. I'm just gonna ignore it from now on. I'm probably gonna start saying Heron now from hanging out with you. I'm giving less love to Color Purple at the end of the day. Maybe that'll be a bad bet. And so I'm not giving it 2 nominations here. I am going with Danielle Brooks, but I'm going over to Penelope Cruz. My thinking with keeping in Julianne Moore and adding Penelope Cruz is the more international Oscars voting body. Penelope Cruz has gotten Oscars love even in recent years when it really wasn't expected. So where we're not seeing her get love in especially more America-based Guild Awards, I'm going to think that the Oscars, this would be a chance for her to pull through and break into that five. We'll see. Not very confident right now about anything, even.
Apparently.
Not even sure if I chose that, but it was a good defense, I think. I think it made sense. We'll see.
Penelope Cruz was someone I was on the fence with when I was going through this category because she was the one that stood out for me in Ferrari. Whenever you see a very strong female character on screen, those are the ones who get a lot of attention, especially with the kind of year that we had in 2023. So you could be you could be right. But I just think no matter what, this category in itself is extremely strong. For supporting actor, I have Robert Downey Jr., Robert De Niro, Ryan Gosling, Willem Dafoe, and Charles Melton. I think the one who stands out here is Charles Melton because I don't think a lot of people were expecting him to get so much love in the awards season, and he was getting so much love at the beginning of awards season and still kind of getting it too now. I think you and I, our biggest contention here was Robert De Niro when we were talking about, was Robert De Niro really good in Killers of the Flower Moon? And I think my answer to that was, well, this is the Robert De Niro we normally should be getting because he is such a strong actor, right?
I wish he'd done his Meet the Fockers work in Killers of the Flower Moon. In fact, it actually may have been the same thing. I'm honestly not sure. Is he just De Niroing? Like that's just who he is all the time? That's my understanding. Could be wrong, but he just has different lines, I think, at this point. He's a legend and he got really good at doing that thing. I'm not trying to take it away. But to me, this one didn't rise above in any way. Personally, I'm just ranting now, but I would put Dominic Sessa in this category in a heartbeat before a lot of these dudes.
For someone who this was his first role, I thought did an amazing job in The Holdovers. And I think you could have easily also picked any one of the actors from The Iron Claw, because I felt like there was a lot of great performances in that as well. So what was your final list for supporting actor? I don't think you mentioned that yet.
Well, the same. I made one little change. Robert Downey, Robert De Niro, Ryan Gosling, Charles Melton, and then Mark Ruffalo instead of Willem Dafoe. I think Mark Ruffalo's performance is loud. I think there's a lot of love for him in Hollywood. That's even more true for Willem Dafoe, but his role is so muted. My feeling is that because the Oscars are the last award of the season, we might see more love for that Ruffalo performance than the Dafoe one.
Next category we have here is actress, or I should say, Emma Stone, Greta Lee, Sandra Hüller, Carey Mulligan, and Lily Gladstone. In recent weeks, Emma Stone, Carey Mulligan, and Sandra are getting a lot of love in recent weeks. Lily Gladstone was like the number one person going into award season, but I do feel like her name is getting a little bit watered down now. The more deeper in the season we're getting in, her performance still is probably one of the best of the year last year. Greta Lee, because again, Past Lives was one of my favorite movies of the year, so I have to give her a shout out and include her on this list here.
So for actress, basically the same list with one exception. So Emma Stone, Sandra Hüller, Carey Mulligan, Lily Gladstone. The one that I switched out is I had a hard time leaving out Margot Robbie, who I had. I'd never had Greta Lee, but I'm going to go with Annette Bening with the similar theories we've talked about before. An old hand in Hollywood. And I watched that movie and I did not enjoy it one bit, but I was constantly amazed at what Annette Bening was putting herself through for that role. We know that the Oscars love a good punishing performance like that. The fact that she's been so consistently doing great work, recognizing the past by Hollywood, and it's a bit overdue at this point. So wouldn't be shocked if she's left off, but if there's going to be some big upset of the day, and some of the headlines might be Margot Robbie snubbed and Annette Bening's the person taking the place. We're seeing less love for Past Lives than I would have thought around award season overall. So I'm not going Greta Lee. Personally, these are not who I would be choosing necessarily for these awards. But when I'm looking for an upset, that's what I'm going with for Annette Bening.
If things turn out the way you and I are thinking they might turn out, I think the big surprise is Margot Robbie not getting nominated for the actress category. I think that's going to surprise a lot of people. But at the same time, when you really think about it, most people who saw that movie will say that Ryan Gosling was the outstanding person in that movie. So it's kind of weird how that dynamic has changed, especially with the narrative of the movie itself. But we could be very wrong too. And she could be very much well nominated, and one of these other ladies will be left out. So that leads us to actor. In the best acting category here, we have Cillian Murphy on my list, Paul Giamatti, Bradley Cooper, Jeffrey Wright, and Coleman Domingo. I do have him on here because I'm hearing so much good stuff about his performance in Rustin, and he was also in The Color Purple. So I think the fact that he has two well done performances very close to each other, I think that he's going to be very fresh in a lot of people's minds when it comes to the voting process. So
I'm going to put a stake in it and say the exact same five for me: Cillian Murphy, Giamatti, Bradley Cooper, Jeffrey Wright, Coleman Domingo. Not a copy paste error, I promise. A lot of folks have Leo on their list for Best Actor. He's currently favored a good margin ahead of Coleman Domingo, but for the exact same reasons you said, I've got Coleman Domingo rounding that spot out.
And for me, the reason why I didn't put Leo on my list is because same reason I'm giving with Margot Robbie. I don't think Leo was the strongest person in that movie. Director. This is always a very fun category. Another one of our favorites that we love talking about. So on my list here, I have Christopher Nolan, Greta Gerwig, Martin Scorsese, Celine Song, and Yorgos Lanthimos. Celine Song, I am giving love to Past Lives because for someone who this is their directorial debut, I think she put together a beautiful movie. If you go through the year last year, so many people had Past Lives on their top lists, and so many people were talking about that movie. I'm hoping that still will continue moving forward. I know it could have changed because of other people who are favoring other people in this category, but I'm going to put her there, and I'm going to give my love to her there on my list.
I hope you're right, honestly. There's a couple other folks I would also be happy with for that fifth spot. Let's just say it's pretty smart betting right now. The locks would be Christopher Nolan, Martin Scorsese, Yorgos Lanthimos, and Greta Gerwig. Really solid bets. The folks who are almost certainly getting the most nominations throughout their movies, which is a pretty good indicator. They're all respected past nominees. You go down the line and why they're smart. And then after that, the drop-off is really interesting because you have a lot of different people who have these different stories and narratives. Right. So I'm going different than you. Instead of doing Past Lives, I'm being a cynic and saying The Holdovers.
Okay.
Did Alexander Payne do a great job? Yes. Why am I choosing it? Not because of that. Because while Hollywood has gotten much better at choosing folks like Celine Song, I know they still have some bad habits to iron out. And one of those is a curmudgeonly movie from an old dude that reminds them of the 1970s when they thought the movies were the best, and it gave them that good feeling. It was a good job at doing that. It was one of the most first things I noticed, like, oh, wow, this is really effective at reminiscing that era. Yeah. My fear is that that's why it'll get the fifth director spot. So good job, successful. That's awesome. Does that mean it's the fifth best movie? Not necessarily, but it'll take a lot of the biases of some of the voting body.
I almost had him on my list. So I did one of those like gut check last minute changes where I'm like, no, I'm giving this to Celine. If I was voting myself, who would I put in there? So I kind of put that in there as that. Now we're down to the big daddy, the big event, the big cheese, best picture. On my list for best picture, I have, and we both chose 10. We don't know if 10 will be chosen because they kind of go back and forth on whatever algorithm they have. Like sometimes it could be 8. On my list for best picture, I have Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Barbie, Past Lives, The Holdovers, Maestro, Killers of the Flower Moon, Anatomy of a Fall, American Fiction, and Chicken Run 2. No, I'm just kidding. The Color Purple. So big question is, do you have the similar list that I have?
Very similar. I think basically everyone will. And then as I was going through it, somehow I hadn't written down Killers of the Flower Moon. So I must have accidentally thought, like, I know that that's on my list. So I must have like, oh, I already wrote that down.
You didn't copy and paste it over.
But now
that's why, yeah.
Surely not. Surely, why would I do something like that? That's bonkers. Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Barbie, Past Lives, The Holdover, American Fiction, Maestro, Past Lives, Killers of the Flower Moon.
You said Past Lives twice.
Thank God. Okay,
you said
that makes
way
twice. More sense. See, that's the thing about Inyon.
About what? Oh,
Inyon.
I see what you're doing. Look, don't try to be clever and get yourself out of this situation here. You just messed up.
Okay, so now you're about to see me really freak out. And do I choose Anatomy of a Fall or Zone of Interest? Or do you just dock me the negative?
Here we go.
Wait, what if Past Lives is nominated? Do I get double points? No. I think I should write Oppenheimer 10 times. That's 10 points, baby. I'm going to go with Anatomy of a Fall. I don't feel good about anything. And I'm going to throw up as soon as this is over. Did I do what I have to do?
Can you reread? So let's okay.
Oh, right.
One more time. Your final list for best picture.
Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Barbie, Past Lives, The Holdovers, American Fiction, Maestro, Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon, Spider-Verse, and Chicken Run, Dawn of the Chicken Nugget.
So you have an extra in there?
Yeah, it's the Nugget.
It's the Nugget extra. Oh, Blake, this is why I love doing this stuff with you, because I know how difficult it can be. And seeing you have your own internal meltdown during the whole process. There it is. Those are our final nomination predictions. When the official nominees are announced, it's going to be very interesting to see what those final nominees are going to be. We will be live reacting to those nominations as they are announced live. So best way to follow us if you want to watch us and join in on our reaction and recap of those live announcements, subscribe and make sure you have the notifications turned on so you get notified the minute we go live on that day. It's going to be early in the morning. They love to do this really early, which is funny too because they are in California, so you would think they would be later in the day, but yeah, they probably can't sleep. They're probably just too excited.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, just
maybe,
like you.
Maybe you'll get me even more delirious that day.
There it is.
Let's see.
That I can't wait for. And of course, I'm sure there are many people who just listen to this episode. They can't wait for that either as they experience how it is in doing something like this with you there.
For full audio episodes of the MovieTime Podcast, make sure to follow and subscribe to the LOWKEY GEEK channel on your favorite podcast platform. New episodes are uploaded every week.